How's it going, guys? My name is Peter with P Cuts. I'm a licensed cosmetologist. I love cutting hair. I've been cutting hair for about a year now, and this is what I do. So today, this is my friend Luis. Today we're gonna be doing a low, mid, bald fade on him. First, what I wanna do is kind of see what his head shape is like by feeling it, just because you gotta take that into consideration, right, when you're cutting the hair. I'm also gonna be combing the hair down, just making sure the hair is where it lives. So he has a cowlick right here, and I don't want to over direct stuff coming backwards or anything like that. So you just want to make sure you're combing it the way it should live. I'm going to be using the cordless Wahl Seniors. Again, so like I said, you always want to analyze the head shape. You have to take into consideration his occipital bone right here. So right now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking the number 2 guard. I'm going to be coming up and fading right here, this area, going up with the pulling out method at the very end, just so it's gonna be easier to blend around this area when we come back in with it. We're actually gonna section him off. I think clean section is gonna equal the clean result. And so we definitely wanna make sure that our sectioning are very precise, very clean. With that said, we're gonna go ahead and start. I'm gonna cut mostly on his left side right here, so we can kind of see how the blend's gonna happen. Put my number 2 guard on. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start cutting on this area right here with the method of pulling out the very end. This is gonna allow me to kind of make it an easier blend when we get to this area. So this is my number 2 guard. Now I'm gonna be putting my 1.5 guard. And how I approach fades is I fade down. For me, I love this concept. I think it makes it easier. It's a little bit quicker technique to kind of see exactly where you're hitting. And so you're not going over everything multiple times. It's gonna save you a lot of time, save you a lot of energy, and give you a nice little blend that you're looking for. So now with my guard and my lever closed, I wanna start going under that 2 guard and start making that first line. Now with my lever, I wanna start slowly opening it so then it transitions into the number 2 guard very nice and smoothly. So I'm gonna be using my number 1 guard right now. How I use my lever is a little bit different. How I do it, I just adjust my hand a little bit, go to the left, and I have my thumb on the lever, and then the rest of the hand kind of grabbing still where it should be. And as I start to fade, I actually start to use my lever at the same time and start lifting up. So the transition is quick, it's easy, and it's on the spot. So right when I start to go up, and once I'm at the very end with my lever, I pull out and I reset my lever, come back in, do the same transition by pushing my lever down, making that nice and easy blend, reset, and come back and approach it again. The last guard that I'm gonna use before I use no guard is my half guard. So my half guard is gonna give me that easy transition into my 1 guard. Same technique, same lever technique. This time, the only difference is I'm gonna start making this arch that's gonna be like this. So I've actually been doing that with all my other guards just so we can actually see this line kind of pop out when we go in to line it up. So same technique, I'm gonna start fading and I'm gonna start dipping right here. My last step is no guard. I'm gonna be using the same technique, this darker spot. Usually I take this off with the half, but I just wanted to let you know kind of what I'm gonna be hitting so everybody's aware of what step I'm at and how fading down can be a very good technique and it can actually make the fade pop a little bit more. I also love using the mirror, so I'm always constantly kind of looking at the mirror as well, just because the mirror adds a little bit more definition. You can kind of see a little bit more detail work. As you can see, the hair right here wants to shoot up. That means the hair growth is this way. So what I want to do, instead of coming in and just knocking it down and then coming in with my shavers, it actually would irritate this. So you want to make sure it's as low as you can by taking it out. And sometimes instead of going up with it, all you have to do is turn it, go against the grain, and then when you come in with your shavers, it's gonna be a lot easier, a lot more smooth, and it won't irritate as much. Now I'm gonna be using my Wahl detailers with the T-blade on it. I love the T-blade. It gets into very small spots. It gives it very detailed work. It's very small, and it just feels great in your hand. So I'm just gonna be nicking this little corner. The last tool I'm gonna be using today is the Wahl 5-star Finale shavers. These get it very, very tight, very, very smooth, very, very bald. and it's gonna be an easy transition from this to my trimmers. I'm gonna be hitting it right here, and the technique that I'm gonna use is I'm actually gonna drop it right here, pull this skin up, and kind of slightly hover over that line. This is gonna give me a nice blend and nice transition where we hope to not see any lines. Another technique that you can use is instead of hovering over and going this way by dropping this really flat, like I said, you can actually flick down and just touch the guideline so it starts to soften that guideline. I'm actually gonna go over the whole haircut just like this, because this, by flicking down, some people will think it's scary, but it actually softens the hair just a little bit and just gives it just a nice little blur fade. But you definitely want to be careful, just because the second you go like this, it could definitely make a guideline that you don't want. And to avoid that, you're kind of slightly hovering over it, flicking it down, and just softening every guideline there is. Now that we got the fade, we're gonna move on to the lineup. So now I'm gonna be pulling out my Wahl detailers. I'm gonna be making a crisp line right here. You have to make sure that it's natural. By using the T-blade and the edge of the T-blade, it's gonna give me a little bit more precise lines. And you can already see that by making that arch, it's starting to make this line a little bit darker, giving that effect. Now I'm gonna be pulling out my 5-star Wahl Magic Clips. I love this clipper because the teeth, they're staggered. Here in this moment, you have to make sure that the way you hold your comb is very important. Elevation is extremely important because you want to make sure that you're cutting at a 90-degree angle. And if you go higher than that, that's fine. But the higher you hold, the higher you elevate, the softer it's going to fall. So sometimes holding it in a high position will make it an easier blend because of how soft it's going to fall back into the haircut. Now that we have this side done, I'm going to finish this other side, making it the same, taking the same steps that I took on this left side and completing the haircut. So we just finished the right side, and now I'm going to start transitioning the blend from the occipital bone so it fades really nicely into the top portion of the head. Now that we have finished the right side, the left side, and the back side, we blended it nice and easy so it looks good. We're gonna take the clips out and we're gonna wet it. So for this haircut, we're actually just gonna style it. This hair is nice in transition into the long hair. So you can kind of see that it's a little bit longer than the hair that we have cut previously. And that's the only thing that I would recommend touching is something like this hair right there. Holding it tight, give it a nice tension. You can go about this different ways. Like I already did, I did it straight across, or something you can also do is come in and texturizing it. It's just gonna give it a little bit more texture and a softer blend. So like I said, I do love the length here, so we're actually gonna leave this, we're gonna style it, and we're gonna give you the final look. So I'm gonna add some texture spray, and then I'm gonna go in with a little bit of dry paste, just to give it a nice matte finish. You can kind of see how his waves and his natural curly hair makes it look like a textured haircut. So this is our final look. This is what I call the mid to low bald fade. Leaving it a little bit darker around the parietal ridge or the crown area so it transitions nice and easy to his longer, curly, textured top. Blending it on the occipital bone, making it soft. Remember, keeping in mind his head shape and making it a nice, easy transition. Awesome, we're moving on to the next model. There's my friend Eric. He's gonna be getting the Caesar cut. Okay, so I already sanitized my tools. They're ready to go. So as you can see right here, he has a cowlick. Remember, by hitting it kind of straight on, it can start to cause an irritation. So just keep in mind the way you're cutting hair. So he has more of a occipital bone that kind of wants to come out. You got to keep this in mind. You always want to like kind of leave a little bit of length here so the transition from here to here is smooth. It keeps the head round and there's no flatness, because the second we go and take a clipper and we kind of take this off, it's going to create flat here, and then long. So by leaving some hair here, leaving a little bit of bulk with a little bit of texture, it's gonna make this head shape kind of come out more round and look more natural. He also has a cowlick right here, but because we're gonna style his hair, it's gonna kind of stick up, it's gonna kind of cover it, and it's gonna give us less trouble with it. I'm gonna be using my 1.5 guard to start off with this haircut. Same technique, I'm gonna be fading down, and I'm gonna be taking my 1.5 here, my 1 here, my half guard here, and my no guard here. When you get to the occipital bone, you wanna make sure it starts to drop a little bit because we're taking into consideration his occipital bone. So we definitely want to give him a haircut that matches with his head shape. So we're actually going to start dropping it about right here, using my lever to pull out, combing this down so it lays how it should. Now I'm going to be taking my half guard or the 1/16 guard, and I'm going to be making this lower line, again using my lever to transition to my number 1 guard. Last step, no guard. We're going to be knocking down these hair right here and making it into a nice transition. Now bringing in my Wahl detailers again, I'm going to be making the nice crisp lineup and knocking down a little bit of this as well, preparing it for the shavers. And the last tool that I want to use on the fade is my finales, my shavers, and I'm going to be knocking down this tougher part. And some people have some tough hair, but the shavers do so well in knocking that out and making it very, very smooth. Now that we're done with the fade and using the shavers, now we want to start hitting this kind of crown area or parietal ridge. So for this part, I'm using my Wahl magic clips. Now dropping it by the occipital bone. The way you hold it is you either want to hold it straight up, because the second you kind of face it towards me or face it away from me, it's going to create either a leaning shape or a building shape. So to keep it as natural as you can, keep the teeth facing up, because again, the mistake comes from which hand you're holding the comb with, never from the hand that you're cutting with. Now that we finished with the right side, I'm going to finish the left side and then transition back up so we can finish the top. Awesome, so we just finished the opposite side. So now that we faded it right here, we're gonna start working on the crown area or around like above the occipital bone. So I'm gonna comb the hair and grab it with my finger for better tension and make sure it's really tight, just because it's gonna make all the difference. And I like to use my fingers because it does give, now that we blended the top, we're actually gonna try a different technique up top to give it a little bit of texture. So I'm combing the hair down. And to give it texture, you have two options. You can either pick it up and knock it, but in this case, we're actually gonna try a new technique that's called clipper slicing, and we're actually gonna slice it through and kind of give it a little bit of texture. So by combing the hair down, I'm gonna keep my lever closed and knock it very slightly in this clipper slicing technique. And the same thing going the opposite way. And like I said, the other option you can do is you can take hair and knock it this way. And now we're gonna move on to styling it. I have a little bit of dry paste here on my finger. I'm just gonna rub it in. So I kind of like to have my little version of it is I'm gonna go actually straight forward, and literally with my fingers, I'm just gonna kind of mess it up. That simple. Also by lifting this part right here, including the occipital bone hairs and kind of lifting it up, it's gonna give it a cool new style, a little bit more modern style. All right guys, so this is the finished look. This is the Caesar look. We get her a nice little texture, my style kind of thing up top, get her a nice fade, working with the head shape. Remember, that's very important. Look at every little detail. In this case, we looked at the occipital bone, we worked with it, and now we kind of give it our own little style. Awesome, now we're with my third model. His name is Garen. We're gonna be giving him the modern mullet look. I'm gonna be teaching you the steps and the techniques that I take to give him that exact look. I'm gonna be using my Wahl Seniors cordless on these ones. I'm gonna be using my 1.5 guard. I'm gonna be starting off with the very top. We can kind of see that he's still growing out his mullet, but it's looking good, it's looking long. We're definitely gonna add some texture in it so it lays a little bit nicer and it flows even better. Now taking my 1 guard, I'm gonna make that transition. Using my half guard, again, I'm gonna be hitting this spot, kind of making it feel like a taper. By sometimes using the corner of your blade, it gives it a more texture feel, so you start breaking up some hair. So sometimes when you see kind of heavier lines, you can use the corner of your blade and kind of start breaking it apart so it blends even better. Then my last step is taking it with no guard, using my 5-star finale shavers. We're gonna knock it down right here so it gets it very nice and smooth. Now for the lineup, I wanna use my detailers on these ones just because it's gonna give it a nice clean, crisp line because of the T-blade that it has on it. Using my magic clips, I'm gonna use my comb right here and start blending in this crown area to the top of his head. Again, his hair is already short, so this blend should be fairly easier, but it was all because of the first step that I took with my 1.5 guard. I started lifting the lever up and pulling out a little bit, so then it was easier for me for this point. And now I'm gonna line up around the ears. These are shorter hairs, and so we wanna use the edge of our T-blade. Now using my magic clips, again, for the staggered blade. By using my comb and lifting it up and over directing it backwards, it's gonna conserve length, and that's what we want in this case. So the longer that the hair travels, the longer it's gonna lay. So that's what we wanna do in this case, is yes, we can cut right here, which is fine, but to conserve length, we wanna actually pick it up and over direct it backwards and cut over here, in this case, because he is still growing it out. In the section in the back, we're gonna start adding some texture in the back so it moves better. I'm gonna comb the hair back and just hitting it this way. When you pick up the hair with tension, you can either go this way. Mullets, you know, he wants to conserve length, but we're gonna add movement. So we just have finished one side of the modern mullet. So I'm gonna finish the other side, and then we're gonna bring it back so we can style it up top. So we just finished the other side, giving him a nice fade to the lineup, blended the mullet. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and style. So his hair is already pretty short, so we're gonna keep some length. And we kept a little bit darker area here, just so it's a nice and kind of a comb over look up top, but it's gonna be blended in nice to the mullet, giving him like a nice modern look. Just to give him a nice matte finish. All right guys, now we're done. Here we have the modern mullet look. As you can see, we just styled it with a matte finish up top, blended it, giving him a nice kind of taper fade on the sides, and textured the mullet so it creates more movement and more visual texture as he goes on for his day. So thank you so much, you guys, and I hope you like this final look. Thanks.